Hey everybody, it's another Pop Review. I'm Alex.
I'm Sean.
Today we're talking about Godzilla, King of the Monsters. He's the king. I'm so excited. This movie was so good. So before we go
Really?
yeah, really.
I didn't know if you liked it or not watching it.
Oh my gosh, like the whole time I was like, "Ah!" like squealing like a little fangirl. But anyway, so it's a spoiler review.
Yes.
So, there's not too much to spoil, but a little bit.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but it is a spoiler review, so please go watch the movie, go support the movie, and once you've done that, come back here and listen to Alex gush about it, because she really liked it, FYI.
More importantly,
not a spoiler.
Yeah, supporting the movie is important, because I think this movie, I would love to see this franchise blossom, and we'll talk about that, so definitely go see it if you haven't yet, and if you have, go see it again.
Yeah, I've seen it twice. Alex has seen it once.
Yes.
So, not that I don't already know the answer, but first initial thoughts of Godzilla King of Monsters.
Initial thoughts. It was amazing. It was perfect. Like, it's exactly what a Godzilla movie should be. And if you guys are fans of the channel, or if you've watched us before, you'll know that I'm very, very critical. I don't let things slide usually, even if it's a franchise that I like. And this particular movie actually did Godzilla right. Like, this was a perfect Godzilla movie. And we'll talk a little bit more about that if you didn't like it, or if you were like, wait, why? We'll definitely talk about that. So, you? Thoughts?
Initial thoughts were I really, really enjoyed it as well. I think it's funny how, if you watch our channel when we were doing the trailers, my thoughts were like, hey, I want to see some fights. I want to see, I don't want to see any cutaways from the fights, just like the first Godzilla movie. I had a problem with that. Some people liked that. I didn't. And they did that, but I also wanted the perspective of the humans watching this spectacle battle happen around them, and they're helpless to do anything. So I think they had a great balance of both. Of where we got to see Godzilla kick some ass. Yep. We saw the humans dealing with that. And it was a nice balance there. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if there was more Godzilla, I would take it. But considering what we got versus the first Godzilla that came out in 2014, it's like night and day.
So much better.
Yeah, so much better.
So much better, because I feel like, not to cut you off, but I do feel that the people who made this film have really done like a course correction. They are fans of the originals. They did their research. They understand tonally what Godzilla is. And by the way, Godzilla is not a monster movie. Just throwing that out there. Godzilla, these movies historically are not really monster movies. They're science fiction. And that is the main genre that actually carries these films forward, which is really interesting. Godzilla isn't in the movies very much. Like, they kind of come together at the end and they have their little battle, but it's not really the focal point. Is the monster aspect. Yeah. It's about the science fiction, and we can get more into that, but I think they did a really good job at nailing that. I really do.
I really, really agree. And we saw it in IMAX. I do recommend, if you're gonna go see it, if you can't see it in IMAX,
the sound,
the sound, but not only just like to see like with Ghidorah, like when the wings are like out like this, it was just like a spectacle, and just like to hear Godzilla's ramping up to do the flame, it just like it was like, I mean, if you guys watch the channel, you know, like, I'm big into like superhero movies. This is Alex's like MCU or DC Universe movies. This is her bag.
This is my expanded universe.
So like just to see like she was like a little girl watching like Ghidorah. Like, she was like nerding out the entire time.
Here we are.
Yeah, and like she got me to wear this Godzilla shirt, which I like.
Cool shirt.
And I'm actually now even curious to go back and start watching some of the older ones, because we were talking about it earlier before we started shooting. I've seen a lot of them, but a lot of the times they were on TV when I was a kid.
Sure.
And you know, playing around, they're just in the background. So I'm actually now curious to go back and watch some of them, just to kind of pick up on some of the things you said there are Easter eggs of.
There's some Easter eggs
that they dropped in this movie, just to like, that's where that came from. Got it.
Yes, and one thing to remember, if you're, I don't know if you guys are original Godzilla fans, or if you're sort of just latching on now because the trailers were so good, which they were.
Yeah, they were really good.
The marketing for this film really did a great job. The original films are very campy and they're very of their time.
Of course.
Like, most of them are in the 60s, so there's sort of this just campiness to it that I can't explain to you. You have to just go and watch them, and they're so ridiculous, and they're so silly, and they're so out there, and there's aliens, and there's, the science fiction element, there's this technology that doesn't exist. It's really just out there, and that's what I wanted them to start bringing into this franchise, because otherwise it's just going to be a normal, boring monster movie. Like, we've seen those before. We've seen the type of thing. But if you're bringing in the personality of the original films, then that's something new, that's something fun. And especially with the Easter eggs, then you can start actually building this world, and that's what they're looking to do. So
yeah, and I think they've done a good job, like, watching this movie. They made sure to remind you that Kong Skull Island is part of this movie. They keep
really were like hitting it over the head. It's like Skull Island.
If you look at the maps, Skull Island is like right.
I get it.
We know. But in case you don't know, the Kong Skull Island movie that came out a couple of years ago, or was it last year? Is part of this MonsterVerse universe that they're building.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. That Godzilla movie from 2014 is part of it, and then Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Kong, is going to be part of this, coming out March of next year. So we have that to look forward to, and they kind of tease that towards the end, and we'll talk about the after credit scene as we go along. But I'm glad that they're flushing this out, and we were talking about they've said that there's 17 Titans that are out there. We only saw a couple of them now, so who's to say who we're gonna like? We're probably gonna get some originals maybe in the next one, maybe some more that we're more used to. We'll see. We don't know what they're gonna do. They already shot that one, and they're in post production now. I can't wait for that trailer to come out. You can be sure we'll do a review on that trailer and trailers when those come out. But I do like the world building that was done really in this movie, because this movie is going to be the launching point for what we get next and probably going forward, more so than Kong Skull Island, which took place in the 70s, and the 2014 Godzilla.
Absolutely. I mean, the 2014 Godzilla didn't really do much for me. It felt very much like the people making the movie weren't fans, and they actually didn't really have much of a vision in terms of where this was going to go. So I very much liked this film much more than I liked the 2014.
Because it felt like we got teased with Godzilla. I mean, we saw a lot. We saw a good amount of him in this one. I would love to see more, but I'm not going to criticize the movie for it. But in the 2014 version, just like when you thought Godzilla was about to do something cool, cut away, and then do it again, and then cut away some more. Like, again, some people love that. Like, almost kind of like the Jaws aspect of it. Like, don't show us too much and do some cutaways. Yeah, but remember, that wasn't the original plan for Jaws. He was supposed to be showing a lot more. The reason
it malfunctioned.
The shark didn't work, so they had to do it. That just happy accident the way it turned out.
Yeah,
that was the way it was most supposed to be. So I'm seeing Godzilla being teased like that didn't work for me. The fact that we got a lot of him this time. And hopefully we get more of him in the next one. I really, really enjoyed it.
Right, so I mean, it's obviously very important that we're talking so much about the franchise and where it's going to go and all that excitement, but let's talk a little bit about the movie.
Yeah, this movie.
I mean, ultimately it's going to weave into what we're talking about, like where it's going, because it's finally very exciting for me that there's something in this world that I can latch on to that I really care about. So we're going to talk about it, but let's talk about the actual movie.
Yeah.
So, what did you think about, because a lot of people have been saying, I've been trying not to look at all the reviews and stuff like that, but I've noticed that a lot of people are saying that the human element is very lacking and that sort of diminished the story for people. What do you think about that?
It's usually, I would say that there's too much humans in it, but I think there was just enough. They were focused. Obviously, the movie is gonna focus on what the humans are doing. That's driving what's happening to Godzilla and the rest of the Titans. But for me, it was enough where I would care about what's going on with them, but not where it's the point where I'm like, hurry up and get back to Godzilla. You know, so they're just world building enough where they set in the stakes and the motivations of why people are doing what they're doing enough to justify what's happening and the story moving forward. So I never had a problem with the humans in the movie. I could kind of see where people might think that, but for me, it didn't bother me at all. What about you?
Well, no, it didn't bother me either. I mean, because I was focused on the mythology of the whole thing. Yeah. Because being an original Godzilla fan, I am sort of trying to pick out, like we're talking about, like where it's going. Like, what are they setting up? What elements are they bringing in from the old films? Like, how are the monsters going to be different from what they were when they were first introduced in the 50s and the 60s? You know, so there's a lot of stuff that I was focused on that had nothing to do with the human characters. But that's the whole thing about Godzilla. It's not really about the human characters. I mean, it is, but it's not. Like, they're the characters that are driving the story and that we're supposed to care about, but no one actually does. Like, it's just sort of like pushing everything forward in terms of this mythology of these giant monsters, these titans, which they've never been called titans before, so they introduced that term into this series. Well,
I'm sure that's like more of an Americanized thing, calling them titans.
Sure.
Maybe there's...
I guess a kaiju would be the...
Yeah, I don't know if they want to use that word for America, a kaiju. I mean, they did in Pacific Rim, but see how that turned out.
Yeah.
But I
didn't quite latch on.
I mean, I don't mind the word titans. It's fine.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
Because it also, like you said, culturally for us, it makes sense because that's something that is part of our culture a little bit. Or at least like Greek culture, like something we're familiar with on the Western side of the world, is this idea of these giant mythological titans. So anyway, the human element was whatever. I mean, yeah, they tried to build some sort of father-daughter, mother-daughter, whatever thing, and you can sort of say what you want about that. Didn't work perfectly, but I didn't really care. Well, like, I really didn't care. Like, it actually drove the story exactly where it needed to be in order for us to get the maximum amount of monster screen time. So, well, I don't know. I didn't care.
The only thing I would say is Millie Bobby Brown didn't have a lot to do.
No, she didn't.
For like 3/4 of the whole movie, she was just there touching stuff with her hand and holding her mom's hand. So I was for watching it, I was like, wow, they got her, and like they're not using her at all. She did have, she obviously she took the orca, yeah, and took it
like
to
the whale.
Yeah, and took it to Fenway Park, got Fenway Park destroyed, which as a Yankee fan I kind of somehow enjoyed. But other than that, she didn't have anything to do, and I'm like, I'm hoping she's gonna be in Godzilla vs. Kong, so hopefully she has more to do there. But in this one,
no, they really didn't give her much.
Yeah, and like I remember when they cast, I was like, wow, okay, they got her. Like she's gonna be, and in the trailers, it looks like she's in it. I mean, obviously she's in it a lot, but she really doesn't have. She's just staring and holding her mom's hand and.
Well, yeah, that's the weird thing. Like, I mean,
ice and she didn't do much.
Touching glass, touching ice. But yeah, she's what, like she's 16?
Maybe.
I don't know. She's at high school.
She's a teenager.
She's a teenager
for sure.
Yeah, some of that didn't work for me just because, like, I mean, I've obviously not been through that type of trauma that she was supposedly gone through with her brother dying in the first Godzilla attack and her mom obviously going a little bit mad scientist. Yeah. But yeah, the sort of like childish mom, dad didn't really like it. Didn't fall. She's
a little bit too old for that maybe.
A little bit. That's kind of how I felt about it. So like, Daddy, I'm like, you're 16. You know, I mean, I feel like she would have had a more adult reaction to a lot of the things that was going on. And I don't think that's her as an actor. I think that's just what she was given.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, it also just didn't matter. Like I was saying, like, because that's not really what this is about. No. I think they wanted it to be, you know, the heart of the story was this family. But no one cares about that. We care about the bigger picture. We care about
Godzilla.
What are these 17 monsters? You know?
It's called Godzilla, people.
Yeah, it's not called Millie Bobby Brown.
I care about Godzilla And what's happening with Godzilla? I mean, obviously humans have to be in it because they're the ones, and the movie tells we're the reason the Titans are coming back. It's because what we're doing to the planet, and then they're just coming back to claim what's there. So it's our fault, of course. It's our fault doing things. So, yes, the humans were there. They have a role to play. They were a lot more involved in this one, which I also like them kind of helping Godzilla along, and they brought him back. They re-energized him at one point, which is also cool. But for me, they served their purpose. We didn't get too much where it would have annoyed me if we did. If we got less, would it have bothered me? Probably not, if that meant getting more Godzilla. So if I'm fine with what we got. It was actually, for me, I thought it was just enough. Mm-hmm. It was just enough.
Yeah, totally agree. So, what else? What should we talk about?
I mean, we could just talk about. For me, it was just about the spectacle of the action.
Oh my gosh!
Which was like, and one of the things.
This director did a phenomenal job with the action. I just feel like it was really, and the editor too. Yeah. I feel like it was just really, really well strung together and planned out really nicely. Everything flowed perfectly, in my opinion.
Because the way, and I totally agree with you in terms of how it was shot and how it was edited, because we got different perspectives of the fights. We saw it from Godzilla's point of view, we saw it from Ghidorah's point of view, or whatever fight we were dealing with, and then we also from the human's point of view, like almost like when Ghidorah and Godzilla were fighting for the first time, we saw from the ground perspective how it's just Godzilla's like kicking the plane around like it was a little toy plane, and that's what I actually wanted. And I'm also glad that when we were doing the trailer reviews, I was a little worried that the last trailer we saw a lot of the fight, and I'm thinking, ooh, did we see too much of it? But actually, they showed the last part of the fight, and we didn't really even get to see their first fight a lot. So I'm happy that the trailer didn't show us everything, which sometimes can happen. So a lot of fights we still didn't see going in, but especially the first one was just. Oh, it was just such a spectacle to see.
And what I really appreciated about the way that they rendered the monsters was they were always kind of hidden a little bit. There was either rain or there was snow, some sort of fog, smoke.
Or clouds.
Yeah, there was like always something that was kind of obstructing your view, which I appreciated because if you guys have been watching the channel, I'm not a huge fan of CG animals or monsters, or just CG in general. Yeah. I think that it really can take you out of it if it's not used correctly.
Or it's bad CG.
Yeah,
it's bad CG.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, but like, there's a way to use it and make it work, and this movie was a perfect example of how to do it correctly.
Yes.
Because there was always some kind of, and it was sort of like the Jaws thing in a way where it's sort of like you can't fully get a good glimpse of what's going on because there's these elements that are stopping you, the snow, the rain, the like whatever, like there's something kind of hiding your perspective, and I think it just looked really good because of that, because they weren't willing to show you in like crisp, clear daylight without smoke or fog what they looked like, because I don't think it would look good if they did that.
Well, I mean, but for the most part it was kind of hidden, but for a lot of it we actually saw them in their full element without being kind of clouded or hidden. We actually got to see them, not in like, obviously it wasn't in like
what I mean
in broad daylight.
What I mean is there's a texture in front of it. Like of course we got to see everything.
But not enough where it was like they were really hidden. You know what I mean? Like we got to see them, but not like broad. You know,
they found the perfect balance.
Yeah, exactly.
The perfect balance between, oh my gosh, I know exactly what King Ghidorah looks like, and oh wow, I don't like the way that CG looks.
I can't tell what's happening.
Yeah, there's like this nice middle ground where they just looked part of their environment, which looked really good.
I mean, I didn't have the Michael Bay element where in Transformers you don't know because they're fighting so rapidly. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
I can actually follow along what was going on, like Ghidorah wrapping himself around Godzilla and biting him on his neck and on his sides and taking him up in the air and dropping him. Like, all those shots just look incredible. I just can't, it was just such a, the only word I can really use is spectacle. Like, that's why we still go to the movies to watch movies is because just the awe of it, you can't replicate that kind of sound and screen quality at home. You have to see it on something big like like what we saw in IMAX. Like just see, it was just so incredibly well done.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Ghidorah. So.
My favorite Godzilla monster.
Yeah.
Obviously, guys. I mean, it's on my boobies right now.
Yeah.
This is King Ghidorah.
So basically, they went with the element we weren't sure they were going to go with, was that Ghidorah is an alien.
Yes. I'm so glad they did.
Yeah.
Because as we were talking about at the beginning of the review, that a lot of the old Godzilla films, I would say like almost 50% to a majority, are alien movies. Like these movies, they're all like from outer space because that's what was popular at the time, and that's how they made these films. Is there was always this alien element,
the science fiction element, like you're talking about.
The science fiction element for sure, and we discussed, like for the trailer review, like what are they going to do? Are they going to actually bring in the alien element? And we were kind of like, yeah, probably not, but. They did a little bit where they introduced that King Ghidorah is from outer space. So that kind of opens the gateway a little bit to this broad universe of, opportunities where we might actually see aliens in this franchise.
Well, I mean, we kind of just did.
Well, yeah, King Ghidorah is an alien.
I mean, but also I just like the way they the story fit the fact that Ghidorah came from outer space.
Yeah, it seemed like a little bit of a throwaway, but also it like hit hard. Like it
it really
sense.
did.
You're like,
it made perfect sense.
That's why he's so powerful. That's why he doesn't respond to the oxygen destroyer, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
That's why he can grow back his head. That's why he's just such a threat. Is because
that's why he's affecting like with the hurricane. They thought it was a
weather,
hurricane.
yeah,
It
exactly.
was really him. So yeah, I like the fact because they just sort of said. Oh yeah, he's just one of the Titans as well, but then he has this different effect on everything. It wouldn't have made sense. So the way that they did the story with him being an alien made more sense to with the story that they were telling.
Well, right, but that's canon too.
Yeah.
Like that's actually where King Ghidorah came from. Like for example, in Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, which is King Ghidorah's first appearance, they actually go to Planet X, which is this mysterious planet that's, in our solar system, but it's really a trip, you guys. Like if you're watching this and you haven't experienced some of the original Godzilla films, you really need to do it because it is an absolute trip. So they go to Planet X, and I don't remember how or why, but Rodan and Godzilla are there too on Planet X, and they're just like in space, and they're like fighting King Ghidorah, and it's like, what's going on? And there's aliens. So yeah, they did keep at least to that canon sort of storyline where King Ghidorah did come from outer space.
So King Ghidorah has 3 heads but just 2 tails.
Yeah.
That
your OCD kicks in. Huh?
No, it's like a little like why? I was like, wait, why is there only 2 tails?
Well, because things just don't make sense in outer space.
Okay, I mean that's fine.
And an alien.
And then there was a little bit of like the head, the middle head, like controlling the other 2, telling them kind of what to do, what to focus on. Is that from the original movies as well?
I don't remember that being a thing. Maybe, probably.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe you guys will know. I don't recall. I don't remember.
Okay. But it was just so obviously. History's told us that Ghidorah and Godzilla fought before, and then obviously Ghidorah was in ice, and they broke him out.
I definitely want to talk about 2 things: the mythology of the kaiju, because we go into the subterranean ocean world, and we have to talk about that.
Where Godzilla was just chilling out.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about that. And I guess maybe now's the time to take a drink out of my Game of Thrones cup of wine because, guys, there's 3 dragon heads here, and they all kind of look a little bit like King Ghidorah. So
it could be.
Yeah, no, really, it really does. So yes, cheers. But yeah, I think we do need to talk about what happened subterraneanly.
Yeah.
Because this is one of my favorite parts of the movie, and I'll tell you why, and I've mentioned this before, but the Godzilla films, historically, usually deal with history, they deal with ancient culture, they deal with ancient mythology, or some sort of mythological secret that no one knows, or just some myth or story, oral telling of some story that's going to come true. And so it actually made so much sense to me that they go down into their submarine and they basically discover Atlantis. Like, if you're not a Godzilla fan of the originals and you're watching this, you'd probably be like, what? This is stupid. But no, it actually is perfect for a Godzilla film. It makes complete sense.
Not my mind doesn't remember a lot of the original Godzilla movies, but for me it was like, yeah, that makes sense. Only because the way they were laying out how history has documented the Titans before. So for me, it would have made sense if there wasn't Atlantis. They would have known about Godzilla and the rest of the Titans as well. So why wouldn't they have built shrines and things to it? That made perfect sense for me, and that also made perfect sense of why Godzilla would be chilling out there, recuperating. And then we also found out there's these tunnels under the earth, why he's able to travel so quickly. That also made sense to me too. So I'm just okay with it.
No, I mean, they basically discover Atlantis, and then of course they blow it up, because I actually have an archaeology minor. I don't know if you guys knew this. In college, I have a minor in archaeology. So, there was a part of me that was like, oh no, don't blow it up. Oh no, someone's got to go down there and do the proper research.
But they don't even know where there was. They don't know.
Where is it that they...
Well, because they got sucked into one of those tunnels, and then they were sitting there 800 and something miles from where they got dropped off. So they're not 100% sure where there is.
There you go.
So I don't even know, even if they left it fine, I'm not even sure they know how to get back there specifically. So...
Still. But it was there. I mean, and that was pretty incredible. It was sort of like a Babylonian... it was basically Atlantis, and they didn't say the word, and I'm glad they didn't say the word, because then that would have been wow, you're bringing Atlantis, which is this entire other thing, into a Godzilla film.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't...
They didn't say the word, though. They didn't say Atlantis.
They didn't have to.
They're like, wow, this is very old.
It's a city underwater. Yeah. What else could it be?
Yeah. I mean, kind of. Yeah, basically. It was very Babylonian in nature, and that worked for me perfectly, because it was so in Godzilla vs. Megalon, the main villains are... God, that movie is a trip, you guys. But the main villains are these Easter Islanders who are live under the island or in the island or something, and they're this lost race of people, and they look very much like Roman, kind of Atlantean in garb, and Megalon is the animal that they call to protect them or something. And it's very freaking strange. And so it makes so much sense to me. That's all I could think about when I was watching this. I was like, oh, okay, so maybe they got this idea from Godzilla vs. Megalon, where there's this strange civilization of ancient times that no one really still realized actually exists.
I'm sure they did a lot of plucking from a bunch of the...
Yes, and that's... I mean, honestly, that is what I love about this so much, is they did their research, they're actually fans... And there's a lot of little Easter eggs. We could talk maybe about a couple of those in a moment, but...
well, let's talk about the other Titans that we saw.
I would love to do that.
Who you want to go...
Well, we saw Muto.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Mewtwo?
Mewtwo,
no. Love to see a Pokemon crossover with this one. On that front, though, that's why this is also so exciting to watch the Godzilla film. It's guess what? There's new monsters, and that's exactly what it's like to get a new Pokemon game, where it's they announce a new Pokemon game, and it's oh my god, there's new ones? What? Really? What are they? What are they like? What do they look like? What do they do? And that's kind of how I was feeling watching this
and we saw some of the new ones towards the end, especially when they go to Hail Godzilla. But let's talk about Mothra.
Oh, that's not a new monster.
No, but let's talk about Mothra.
Let's talk about Mothra. Okay, so Mothra is basically like a goddess, queen of the monsters, takes up on this island outside of Japan, and this is another one of those Easter egg situations where she had these like fairy twins that were her protectors or her spokespeople, I guess, like spokespersons. So in Godzilla King of the Monsters, we find out, or, you know, if you're savvy to this kind of thing, we find out that the Miss Ling, I don't remember what her first name was.
One of them was Miss Ling. I can't remember the other one, but they're basically the twins in the movie.
The Japanese character, the female Japanese character that was in the movie, the younger one. Turns out she was one of the twins, who is like a sort of a magical fairy, delegate to Queen Mothra. And this is really interesting because you actually see her other twin, and you don't catch it right away.
You have to be paying attention.
So when Mothra is actually hatching, you see that it's the other twin. It's not Miss Ling or
Well, Miss Ling is the other twin. I can't remember the other character's name, but
gosh, I know. I have to see it again. So it's actually the other twin because you can tell because instead of having the short hair, she has like a long braid.
Yeah.
And so she's watching Mothra hatch, and so this is very telling of sort of Mothra's legacy and Mothra's mythology, that there is this support system for Mothra that's sort of like this, religion almost, that they kind of recognize that she is this goddess and that she needs to be protected and that she's back and all this stuff. So that was really fun to watch. Mothra also has these sort of like healing powers.
Which we saw.
We did see where she just sort of like sprinkles her, when she's dying, like her death powder onto Godzilla, which I guess helps him wake up, or...
It kind of gives him like power boost.
He's like, oh, what is that? Oh, good night. So there's that. But also, she's just kind of a badass. It was like really just fun to see some of the original monsters doing their thing, particularly Mothra, because she's a lady. She's boss lady Mothra.
Well, she kind of kicked Rodan's ass a little bit.
She did kick Rodan's ass. It was very Game of Thrones, where she's like just sticks him.
Yeah.
And he's like,
like, oh,
it's
snap.
like, oh my god.
Even though that didn't kill him, he's like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, he was like, what?
Got him out of here for a while.
So Mothra definitely had like a personality, which I thought was really fun and very beautiful. And the sound design, I mean, that's something that I keep wanting to come back to, is the sound design was so spot on in this film. And Mothra's sound design was just so melodic and beautiful. And we're talking about those twins that I was discussing, and there actually is like a Mothra song that they sing.
She had a theme.
And she was, sort of singing this song. So, I mean, that was great, and that was fun. That was a very nicely placed trajectory for that monster, because she hatches at the beginning.
Yeah. She's
like a larva, and then she kind of goes into the waterfall, and she's like just chilling out, and then she becomes a Mothra. Yeah. So it was a really nice way to track that that monster's trajectory.
Now, you were saying there's a possibility for her to come back. Can you explain how?
Well, just because Mothra is one of those sort of goddesses, I guess, that kind of reincarnates a lot. Yeah. Not reincarnates, that's not the right word, but is able to just continually kind of come back.
Like, maybe like as long as it's like a small part of her that exists, she can like grow out of that, in a sense?
Not so much that, but just more like it is inevitable that Mothra has to keep coming back. Like, she's a goddess, so it's sort of like she just keeps coming back no matter what. So we're not going to see, that's not the end of Mothra. I mean, we're going to see some more of Mothra for sure. And I think they mentioned something about like an egg in the post-credit sequence, maybe, that they found this
I mean, there was
egg.
just, maybe, there was a lot of like flashing things happening. Yeah. So I'm not sure if it was like a major thing. They would have literally spelt it out, kind of like how the post-credit scene was spelt out. So it's a possibility. We obviously won't know until we move further on in the year when we see the first trailer for the next movie that comes out. But Rodan was the other one that we know of that we saw.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Rodan is fun because, well, Rodan's another one of those kaijus that historically there are more than one.
Yeah.
Sort of like the Muto. Like Muto, I think there's many of them. Same thing with Rodan. They didn't really touch on that in this film, so I don't know if that's sort of the angle that they're going to go with. If it's,
he's still alive at the end,
the one Rodan, or
so
if it's going to be
just
more than
one.
one. Yeah, I'm not sure, but historically that's what that was. But I mean, just the way that they introduced some of our favorite monsters, Mothra, Rodan, King Ghidorah, and just Godzilla. The way that they're introduced is just so fulfilling.
Yeah.
And it's just so, like, the emphasis put on it and the way it's shot is just so beautiful. And, like, I was just, like, crying the whole movie.
Like, one of the scenes I really, really loved was when Godzilla's, when they're in the base and Godzilla just setting out that signal.
Yeah.
And they're just like, and then he's like, open the shields, and they're looking at him, and he's just
really
like,
beautiful.
If I wanted to, destroy you guys right now if I wanted to. I got bigger things to deal with.
That was really, really beautiful to see.
But just that I'm here.
Well, it's
I could do it.
Well, it's very rare to see him in his
element. Yeah.
Yeah, in water.
In water, yeah.
We see him emerging from water. We see him stomping on cities. We see him fighting other kaijus. But it's rare to see him underwater like that.
Yeah.
So that was really fun.
Yeah, that was really. Like, he's like, oh, he's intimidating. Like, yeah, he's intimidating, all right. And also this idea that the movie's like, oh, well, he's on our side. I'm like, is he though?
Well, the one character says, for now.
Yeah, for now. And I'm like, I don't know if I buy that. I think just our agenda and his agenda were aligned. I don't necessarily think he's on our side. He's just
No, he's not.
I want to kill Ghidorah. Oh, you want to kill Ghidorah? Or we're on. All right, we'll do this. But
no, that's historically exactly what the movies have always been about.
Yeah, but
it's
I don't.
Sort of like Godzilla will show up and will protect. Well, because he's part of the world too. Like he lives here, so he's fighting on our behalf, or it seems that way.
Yeah.
A lot, but it's not like, oh, I must protect the humans.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like like you said, they have similar aligned goals. But that's always the way Godzilla has been.
You know how many people he probably killed while defending us, being on our side, and how many buildings and stuff he destroyed? He doesn't care about us and like, oh my God, no, I killed Tim. He doesn't care.
Tim!
He's out to do whatever he's got to do. Yeah. And if there's collateral damage, so be it. He doesn't care.
No.
He's just gonna, all right, I killed Ghidorah, now I'm gonna go back under the water and chill until I gotta fight Kong.
But they blew up his bed.
Yeah, so he's gotta find somewhere else. He's like, maybe he's gonna go to Skull Island, like, this is my new home now. Kong, get out of here.
Maybe.
And maybe that's what they're fighting over. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably not, but
Yeah, maybe. I mean, because his home definitely seemed to have, like, a lot of radiation.
Yeah.
Like, just natural radiation coming from the crust of the earth. So, maybe Skull Island has a similar situation. And he's going to be like, I need to go here because there's radiation here.
Or maybe he might go back to the site of where the A-bomb...
Fukushima.
Yeah, got dropped, so maybe there's some latent radioactive material there. Maybe.
Well, obviously, it's not that relevant of a plot point anymore, just because we're not in like the Cold War or whatever. But like the original Godzilla, it's still very interesting to just keep in mind that the original Godzilla was made less than 10 years after World War II ended.
Yeah.
So that was very, very fresh in the mind of the Japanese because we dropped 2 bombs on them. And the whole movie, Godzilla, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about mass weapons and the oxygen destroyer, which we'll talk about in a second. And so, it's just like really, there's just a lot of layers to this story. And, the filmmakers have big shoes to fill because there are so many themes that they can touch on and have to be careful with because they are very important subjects, particularly the nuclear warfare thing, which they kind of brushed over a little bit in this one.
A little bit, yeah. But just, they reminded us, like, hey, that's the reason he exists.
And I understand because it's not, really relevant right now in the way that we live our lives. I mean, maybe it will be, depending
on
I mean,
it is and it isn't, because...
It is and it isn't, yeah.
Because the way they made it... they pretty much said that, like, hey, the reason the Titans are coming back is because the way we're treating the Earth. So it does kind of have a element on how things are today, like how we're treating the Earth and how the Earth is responding to how we're treating it.
Sure, and I mean, but like also some people might think that Vera Farmiga's Emma maybe a little over the top, like, oh wow, haha, how preachy, the environmentalist stuff.
I mean. From her point of view, I can see her point of view. That's why I wasn't like, oh my god, how could she do... Like,
well, it's just very Godzilla.
Yeah,
it's just very Godzilla.
I get it.
It's hearkening back to those original few films where that's kind of what it was about. It was about, like, what are humans doing to... what are we doing to this Earth? What are we doing to each other? It definitely felt campy and a little forced, but that's the franchise. That's Godzilla.
But I liked it only because then, like, when you try to play God, you see what happens, because she had a very they had a plan on what to do, and you know what happens when you make plans? They always go
God
awry.
Laughs.
Yeah,
God laughs.
Yeah, because or played fire.
Yeah,
but it's like. They didn't intend that Ghidorah would be an alien. It's like,
oops,
that just threw everything else off. So I can understand her point of view. Like, all right, we have to kind of put things back into the rightful order of things.
Yes,
I get it.
Yeah.
So
the only thing that I thought was really funny about her little speech was the fact that it seemed like she had a PowerPoint prepared. Where it's like she was like,
oh yeah,
we were seeing
pictures,
videos, and it's like. Wait, is this for the... That's the only part that felt a little bit like, oh, is this for the audience?
It was for us.
It was, but like it didn't integrate very well into that scene.
It always goes to the...
She's like, okay, play the video about the...
when I'm show the clips when I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
But it always goes like show don't tell. It's like the movie had to figure out a way to tell us what her motivations were.
Yeah.
And they couldn't find a way to show it, so we had to have her tell a speech to everybody, like,
it's okay.
this is why I'm doing this, guys.
Right, but so what people, I think, fail to realize is, yes, of course, as expositional as it was, it still is very much in line with all the Godzilla films that came before. It's just very... Dr. Evilly, where it's just sort of like, hello, and that's...
And here's my plan.
Exactly, it's not great, storytelling, but it still is in the vein of what a Godzilla movie should be, so, like, you have to sort of separate, like, oh, what's perfect storytelling and, like, what's stylistic, and I think in this case it actually was stylistic because I fully believe that the filmmakers really did understand what came before, and these films that, informed what they were making really made their way into what was going on. So
well, on that note, we could talk about the weapon they used. So, because when I saw it the first time, when they announced the oxygen...
The oxygen destroyer.
The oxygen destroyer, the whole theater went, yeah! And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I was like, but I don't know. And then, so when Alex, and then they said it, and she was like, yeah! I was like, whoa, this must be a thing from the old movies. And after we talked afterwards, like, yes, it was in the first movie.
Yeah, the original Godzilla, the oxygen destroyer, like I was saying, in terms of, warfare and weapons of mass destruction, that's exactly the theme of the original Godzilla, and the scientist develops this oxygen destroyer, which, he doesn't want to use it on Godzilla, because Godzilla actually is definitively the bad guy in the film. He doesn't want to use it because he's afraid that the government will get their hands on it and then they'll have another A-bomb situation, and there's a lot of discussion on that. So what ends up happening, spoiler, if you haven't seen the original, so Godzilla actually dies in the first Godzilla via the oxygen destroyer. Sort of like they did in this new one, where it's seemingly was like he died.
It killed him, yeah.
But also the person who developed the technology went down with it, which is very much sort of like parallel with, the Japanese character who delivers the A-bomb to Godzilla to power him up. Like, there's a lot of parallels there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really fun to see that they were using the oxygen, because it's so ridiculous. The oxygen destroyer, like...
It just sounds ridiculous.
It's so silly, but that it's so perfect for a Godzilla film. And it's definitely harkening back to that very first one.
I'm curious how it... Maybe because it... they were underwater a little bit. Maybe that's the reason why it didn't kill them.
The oxygen destroyers?
Yeah.
Well, no, they were in the plane above the water when they dropped the oxygen.
Yeah, but so, I mean, they kind of said, oh, maybe because Ghidorah is an alien.
Yep.
That's probably why he didn't die, but
yep.
I'm curious how Godzilla kind of got weakened, for lack of a better word.
It didn't kill him. I guess because maybe he, once again, escaped into one of those tunnels,
yeah.
So they couldn't get his readings. So I think that's what happened a little bit. But yeah, he definitely
kind of a plot hole a little.
Did die. It's whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me. I was like,
yeah, it's whatever.
He got weakened and he went home. So, I don't know. Is there anything else to talk about?
I just want to say
before we talk about the post-credit scene.
Right. Oh yeah. I just want to say how amazing it was to see these characters that I love rendered in such beautiful IMAX CG. Like, because King Ghidorah has been, like, my favorite monster. I named my bearded dragon Ghidorah. Like, I just love this monster, and I always have. And so it was really emotional, almost, like, in a way, to see it on screen and just look so intimidating and beautiful, and his wings just, like...
Yeah.
Just amazing. The only thing is, in the original... films, Ghidorah, his roar sounds more like...
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked. That would not work now.
Well, yeah, right. So you could tell a little bit that the sound designer was trying to bring some of that into
a little bit
King Ghidorah's roars, where it's like, you know, like just a little bit of that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like it was just really fun for me to watch as a fan, and I'm really excited to see where this franchise goes, and I really hope that they weave in a lot of that mythology, because that's what makes it interesting. And I hope they don't forget where the material comes from as well, because that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Completely bizarre 1960s Japanese like cult film. Don't forget that. Like, bring that into it. As weird and as strange as it might feel, I think it's the right choice for this franchise, because otherwise it's going to be another, boring blockbuster.
Well, we saw when they didn't do that with the 1998 Godzilla movie, when they just treated it like...
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
exactly.
all that history was not included, and then you saw how just generic and cookie cutter it was.
That's a good point.
There was nothing special about Godzilla really in that movie, and that's why that movie failed.
Yep.
Big time. So I feel more that this movie did that more so than the 2014 movie did it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Because I think that they didn't want to take a risk in the 2014 one. They're like, we don't want to bring that weirdness in, but they're starting to actually bring it in.
Yeah, which is fine.
With the weird tech that's not really explained, with the evil, like Dr. Evil sort of like... Yeah, I mean, they're really starting... It's like, it's from space. Like, they're really starting to bring in the weirdness that is Godzilla.
Well, I mean...
You can't forget, you can't ignore that.
Well, maybe
what
their approach was, and it would make sense if this was what it was, is the fact that with the 2014... Let's just ground Godzilla a little bit. And then once we've got people on board with that, then we can start rippling out with alien Titan from space and oxygen destroyer, like all this stuff. Like, it's almost like with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you start with Iron Man, you ground it, and then you can start saying, there's Thor and all this other stuff.
That's
like once you've got people bought in, that could be their approach.
That's fair.
And if that was their approach, makes sense. It's working.
It's true, but there was a lot that they threw into this one.
Yeah, which was fine.
It worked, but I was wow, like this is a bold choice for them to be like, oh, this is a monster from space. Oh, we found Atlantis. Yeah. Oh, we'll just drop a nuke on Godzilla. Like there really was and we're just gonna introduce 3 other monsters outside of Godzilla that are gonna be the stars. Oh, outside of that, there's 17 total. So it's like, wow, they really went for it.
And Kong.
Yeah, they really, really went for it, and I'm glad it worked, but it was a bold choice, but I'm glad they did it.
It really was a bold choice, but I think the movie, to its credit, did a lot of world building, but didn't sacrifice from the movie that they were trying to tell, because that's a difficult balance to tell your own story, but then set things up for another movie, and sometimes that can feel a little bit bloated.
Well, absolutely,
but
and it doesn't.
It didn't feel that way in this movie.
A lot of times, it feels like, oh, this is a middle movie.
Yeah.
Oh, this is setup. And it didn't feel like that. It just felt like, oh, cool, Godzilla's the king of the monsters now, and that's what we wanted.
Because you could easily seen them tease Kong more, and just to ram it home even more so that we're getting Kong versus Godzilla even more so, but they just kind of tease like, he's out there. Mm-hmm. Just keep in mind that he's out there, and we're gonna get it in the next one. Yeah.
That was.
How is he gonna win? I have no idea. But we'll save that to when we get the first trailer of that. But let's talk about the post-credit scene.
Oh my god, I'm so excited.
With Tywin. That's not Tywin.
What? Oh, by the way, did you guys notice all of the Jurassic Park references in the film? There was where they're bursting through the gate with the Jeep.
Yeah.
Also, they're like, don't move. It's like, and then I kind of wanted to finish the sentence. It's like, you can't see us if we don't move. They're deaf. And then Millie Bobby Brown is grabbing her binoculars in a very same way that Tim did in the Jeep with T-Rex. There definitely were some Jurassic Park references that I felt were there. Also with the it wasn't a dinosaur, but it was someone with a gun behind a sheath. That was that reminded me of when the Velociraptor was behind the. Yep.
Hey, you want to mirror Jurassic Park? That's a pretty good movie.
No, I mean it was pretty clear to me because Jurassic Park's my favorite movie. So I thought that was great. But what was my point with that? Oh, also there was a fun Game of Thrones thing where Tywin's like, "Long live the king."
Yeah.
Which he definitely, I think, said.
He said in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, so that was really fun too. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the end credit sequence now. So as someone who is not a big fan of the originals, what did you take away from that? What were your thought process?
Well, watching it the first time, I'm like, all right, so that's the head that Godzilla chopped off before the oxygen destroyer came in, and these guys found it, and now Tywin. I'm going to call him Tywin because I can't remember his real character's name.
It's like Alan Grant.
Yeah, something very villainish. So they get the head, and then all right, we'll take it. But it didn't dawn on me watching it the first time because I'm not I haven't seen all the old ones. I was just like, oh, they're gonna take the head and do something with it. I don't know. But then watching it with you now, it's just like, oh, there's so much more possibilities of what they're gonna do with it. So you could talk about what you think now.
Well, I think they mentioned in the film that one of the things that Tywin was interested in was the DNA of these creatures.
Yeah, because they thought that's what they were getting from Ghidorah in the first place.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So there's, of course, that aspect. So in that, if it's that case, I don't know. I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at the original canon and stuff like that, so Mecha Ghidorah is a thing where I think it's actually aliens that rebuild Ghidorah after it's been destroyed by Godzilla. And so there's mechanical wings that it has. It has a mechanical head. So that's also a possibility. Or it could be a little bit of both. Yeah. Where they're using the DNA to build this monster, but they have to fill in the blank parts with mechanics.
I mean, that would make sense considering they have the head. There's DNA in there. It would make perfect sense
So
from what you're saying now when I'm looking back on it, watching it, it would make perfect sense that they would mix. It'd be part Ghidorah, part metal. Yeah. It would make sense. Yeah. And then if that's what they do, let's go with that thinking that's what they do. It would make sense that Kong versus Godzilla, they would then have to fight each other, but they would have to fight this new threat, this new Ghidorah. Yeah. That's out there. So it would if they did that, that would be the perfect bad guy, because you don't want to paint King Kong as a bad guy. Obviously, you don't want to paint Godzilla as a bad guy. Yep. But they are gonna fight. It would make sense that they do, but there has to be someone else out there for them to fight, just like in Batman vs Superman or Iron Man versus Captain America. Yes, they did fight, but there was a larger threat out there that they had to deal with, as well as them fighting each other. So I'm assuming they're going to go down that same road. Yeah. So it makes sense.
It could be. And, I think it would be a little strange if they did King Ghidorah twice in a row.
It would be for me.
That's just kind of how the Godzilla movies have gone, where it's just sort of like, but there's also like 40 of them, so.
But if you put but now it would make it different if you bring the human element in. Because Ghidorah is an alien, and now we made our own, humans have made their own Ghidorah, so that puts a different spin on it. So if they did go down that road, it would be okay that we're kind of seeing the same villain twice, because this is man-made now. So I'd be okay with it.
The only reason that I don't want that is because there's so many other monsters that said, they're like, oh, there's 17. It's like, who are they? Where are they? What do they do? Like I was saying with the Pokemon thing, it's like, oh my god, I'm so excited. New generation of monsters. Yeah, bring them. So the only concern that I have with that is that they're going to spend too much time and emphasis on this, revamped villain that we got from this movie, instead of focusing on some new villains or new monsters that could come into the fray. So that's the only concern that I have. But either way, it made me so excited to see the potential for more King Ghidorah, because it's my favorite monster. It made me so happy.
What about Mechagodzilla? That could be a thing too. Because the way they presented the military...
The military is not our friend.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we want to kill them all. So.
Well, they're very tech savvy, honestly, because they're bringing in the Oxygen Destroyer. They're sort of like, these monsters are not our friends. Yeah. Like, they're not really going to treat this sacred... which a lot of the Japanese characters view as, these are gods, this is sacred, this is
and there should be
our
balance
culture.
Between...
Exactly. Yeah. And the military, like you said, definitely feels a certain way about that. Mm-hmm. So I think they could potentially introduce a Mechagodzilla.
Or both. Mechagodzilla and
that would be insane for one movie.
Well, I mean, hey, we're getting Kong and Godzilla in the same movie, so it wouldn't be that much out of the possibility for have Mechagodzilla and Mechaghidorah.
I feel like that would be a lot.
It'd be a nice tag team. Like that would be cool. Son, if that's the case, son, I'm already on board anyway. So sign me up.
Either way.
Yeah, either way. I don't really care.
Like, just do it, but do it and do it weird. Like, do it right. You know what I mean? Like, do it weird. Because that's what Godzilla is. You got to do it weird.
Well, it'll never be as weird as a guy in a suit crushing, on a soundstage.
No, with that attitude.
It'll never be that weird.
No, with that
But I think there's a possibility for them, and I can understand why the military would get involved based on their actions in this movie. So even if Tywin's character did go to the government with the head and say, hey, let's do something with this, I could understand it. If he found the means on his own, I could see that happening too. Mm-hmm. I can see it going a lot of different ways. If they go those ways, I'm cool with. If they want to save that and put that in their pocket for after Godzilla vs. Kong, I'm glad with that too. So maybe after they fight, maybe the post-credit scene for that movie is them finishing Ghidorah or Mechagodzilla. I'm like, all right, this is our answer. I'd be okay with that too. But the future, we don't know. We don't know. Final thoughts and then a score out of 10.
Final thoughts. I keep saying this, but I mean, I felt like they started bringing in the weirdness that is so important for this franchise that makes it stand out in a world of CGI, whatever. Yeah. And it makes it stand out. So I want that to continue, and I was really happy to see that. I was happy to see all the Easter eggs for people like me. So clearly the filmmakers actually are fans, or at least have done their research. So that was super exciting. It was so fun to watch.
It was.
I don't know. I can't really say anything bad about it. Like, this might, like... Oh, fireworks? What? Oh, Ghidorah? You're out there? So I can't really...
Lightning bolts.
Yeah, I know. I can't really say anything bad about it. Like, this is one of those weird situations where I'm kind of just like, I love this. Like, maybe 9 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
9 atomic bombs?
Or oxygen destroyers.
9 oxygen destroyers out of 10.
Yeah.
Like, I really, really liked this movie because it just hit all the right spots as a Godzilla fan. Yeah,
I mean, not the biggest Godzilla fan. I'd like to get more into it as time goes on. Probably by the time Godzilla vs. King Kong, Kong vs. Godzilla, I can't remember what the order is. I will try to watch a lot of the older Godzilla movies. But walking into this one, my expectations were just on the level. Because I didn't know what to really expect. I mean, the trailers were great. But I've seen great trailers in a bad movie and bad trailers to see a good movie. So I just kept my expectations very level-headed. But watching it, especially the second time watching it, because knowing what to expect, it was just the spectacle of everything, the way they were shot, the shots of Godzilla we saw, the shots of Ghidorah, and like all of the Titans, or Kaiju, however you want to refer to them as. It just looked great. Even the last shot of Godzilla kind of like perched up a little bit and like showing his dominance. Like, yeah, I'm the king for right now at least of everything. And just how big he looked. He just looked great. So for me, it's like an 8.5 oxygen destroyers out of 10. It was just a really, really great like summer movie just to go to see and then just enjoy it. Yeah. And obviously, like, I saw it twice, so seeing two different audiences, like, where we're just, like, 100% fanboys, and there's a lot of casual people, they both really seem to, like, really enjoy the parts that they were supposed to, and I just had a great time, and at the end of the day, if a movie, you walk out enjoying it and having a good time, that's really all you really can ask for it. I had fun watching it. I'd watch it again. I probably am going to watch it again. I'll buy it and I'll watch it again. Or I might go into the theater and watch it and buy it. So, those are our thoughts. It's been a long discussion on Godzilla, King of Monsters. What do you guys think? Let's start the conversation below. What do you think about Godzilla? What do you think about Ghidorah? Are they going to bring him back to be the villain in the next movie? Is it going to be Metal Ghidorah, Metal Godzilla? Whoop. Which way are you going to go? Or is it just going to be Godzilla versus King Kong?
So much to talk about. It could go anywhere.
Yeah, we can go anywhere. So let's start the conversation below. Yes, also, please. Remember to like and subscribe, share, do all those great things. Make sure to hit that notification bell. So when the first Godzilla versus Kong trailer comes out, we will definitely be covering that and that movie going forward until it comes out in March. And you could also check out the other things we do on our channel as well. But until then, I'm Sean.
I'm Alex.